The laughter hit first, sharp, public. I stood frozen in the middle of a crowded school gym, 3 small hands clutched in mine, as her voice cut through the room and stripped me bare. I wanted the floor to open up. I didn't see the man watching from across the room yet. I couldn't imagine what was about to change. Before we go any further, if stories about real people, quiet strength, and unexpected kindness mean something to you, take a second to subscribe to True Kindness Tales. Like the video if it moves you, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this one are meant to be felt together. I never imagined I'd be raising 3 children on my own before I turned 40. Life doesn't ask for permission when it shifts. One day, I was a husband with a modest job, a small house in a quiet Midwestern town, and dreams that felt reachable. The next, I was a single dad to triplets, juggling preschool drop-offs, night shifts, and a grief that never fully settled. The kids were 3 when their mother left. No dramatic fight, no shouting, just exhaustion and resentment that had been building for years. She wanted freedom. I wanted stability. In the end, she walked away, choosing a new life that didn't have room for car seats or bedtime stories. The court gave me full custody. She sent child support sometimes. Visits became rare, then almost non-existent. Raising triplets alone is a constant state of motion. Mornings start before sunrise with spilled cereal, mismatched socks, and one child always crying for no clear reason. Nights end with laundry folding, and the quiet hum of the dishwasher while I calculate bills in my head. There's love, deep and overwhelming, but there's also bone-deep fatigue that seeps into everything. Money was always tight. I worked maintenance for a local hospital, picking up extra shifts whenever I could. I learned how to stretch meals, how to say no to things other parents took for granted, how to smile through parent-teacher conferences, even when I felt like I didn't belong among the polished couples and successful professionals. The high school reunion invitation arrived in the mail on a Tuesday, tucked between utility bills and grocery flyers. At first I laughed. Who goes to reunions anymore? Then I saw the note scribbled at the bottom. Class of 2006, 10-year reunion. Casual, family-friendly, kids welcome. I hadn't thought about my ex in years, not really, but I knew she'd be there. I also knew part of me wanted to go, not to prove anything, just to show myself that I hadn't disappeared, that I still existed outside of work and parenting schedules. The kids were excited. A gym with balloons, snacks, music, and other children to run around with sounded like an adventure. I ironed my only decent button-down, loaded them into the car, and drove to the old high school with a mix of nerves and something close to hope. The gym looked smaller than I remembered. Decorations were simple. People laughed too loudly, hugged too long, talked about careers and vacations. I recognized faces but not lives. My triplets stayed close at first, their fingers wrapped around mine like anchors. Then I heard her laugh. She looked different, stylish, confident. She wore clothes that didn't have stains or wrinkles, hair perfectly styled, phone always in hand. When she saw me, her eyes widened for just a moment before she smiled, slow and sharp. She walked over without hesitation, looked at the kids, looked back at me. Then she laughed again, louder this time, drawing glances from nearby classmates. She said she couldn't believe this was my life now, that I actually brought them here. She joked about how I used to talk about big dreams, and now I was juggling 3 kids alone like some kind of cautionary tale. People smiled awkwardly. No one said anything. My face burned. I felt every old insecurity crawl back to the surface. I wanted to say something clever, something strong, but my youngest tugged on my sleeve, asking if we could get juice, and the moment passed with her shaking her head and walking away. I knelt down, pretending to adjust a shoe just to breathe. The kids didn't understand what had happened, but they felt the shift. They stayed quieter after that, closer, protective in their own small way. That's when I noticed the man watching us. He stood near the bleachers, older than most of the crowd, dressed simply. No flashy suit, no loud laughter. He had kind eyes, the kind that observe more than they judge. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. He smiled, small and genuine, and nodded like he saw something worth respecting. A few minutes later, he approached. He crouched down to the kids' level, asked their names, told them he liked their sneakers. They warmed to him instantly, chatting about school and cartoons. Then he stood and asked me how old they were. When I told him they were 6, all triplets, his eyebrows lifted slightly. Not in disbelief, but in admiration. We talked about kids, about work, about how fast life changes. He listened more than he spoke. When I mentioned my job at the hospital, he nodded like he knew the place well. When I mentioned being a single dad, he didn't offer pity, just respect. At one point, he said he admired parents who showed up even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. It wasn't dramatic, just sincere, and somehow that meant everything. The night ended quietly. I gathered the kids, said quick goodbyes, and left without looking back. In the car, they talked about the snacks and the music and the nice man who liked their shoes. I focused on the road, replaying the evening in my head, trying to shake the weight of humiliation that still sat heavy in my chest. A week passed, then two. Life returned to its usual rhythm: work, school, bills. One afternoon, I was called into the hospital administrator's office. I assumed I'd made a mistake. Maybe a scheduling issue, maybe a complaint. Instead, a woman from HR smiled nervously and told me someone wanted to meet me. The door opened, and there he was. The man from the reunion. He asked if we could talk. Just the two of us. I felt completely out of place as he spoke calmly about the hospital. About investments. About how he'd built a company from nothing decades ago. About how he believed in supporting people who supported others. He told me he'd looked into my work record, my attendance, the notes from supervisors about my reliability, my kindness with patients, my willingness to help without being asked. He said he saw me at the reunion and recognized something familiar. Not success in the traditional sense, but integrity. Then he offered me something I never expected. Not a handout, not charity, an opportunity. A scholarship fund he'd created for employees' families. Support for childcare. Flexible hours. A chance to move into a training program that would double my income within a year. I didn't speak for a long time. I couldn't. My throat closed up and my eyes burned. I kept thinking of that moment in the gym, standing small and exposed, and how close I'd been to believing that was all I'd ever be. He told me he wasn't doing this because I was struggling. He was doing it because I didn't quit. Because I showed up with my kids instead of hiding them. Because kindness isn't loud and strength doesn't always look impressive. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. There were still hard days, still tired nights, but there was breathing room. There was dignity. There was the feeling that someone had seen me at my lowest and decided I was worth investing in. Years later, my kids barely remember that reunion. They remember bedtime stories, weekend pancakes, laughter. They remember a dad who was always there. And I remember a moment of public shame that turned into a private turning point. All because one person chose to look closer instead of looking away. Kindness doesn't always come with grand gestures or viral moments. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through understanding, through opportunity, through a simple refusal to judge someone by a single snapshot of their life. That night could have broken me. Instead, it reminded me that even in rooms where we feel smallest, there may be someone watching with compassion. If this story touched you, carry it forward. Look closer at the people around you. Offer respect before judgment, support before assumptions. And if you've experienced or witnessed a moment of kindness that changed everything, share it in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it today.